Yeah, hello. My name is Eduard Metzker. I'm Solution Manager for Cybersecurity at Vector Informatik, and I'm very happy to host this session on Scalable Automotive Intrusion Detection Systems. And part of this session is presented by a colleague from mine from IBM Cybersecurity, Justus Reich. So this will be a joint session of the two of us. Okay, let's have a look at our agenda for today. So we start with a brief motivation about the topic of intrusion detection systems. And then we focus on the three main areas of onboard detection and data gathering, the reporting and refinement of data, and the analysis and VSOC operation. And we conclude with a summary of the benefits of our scalable approach. So let's have a overview or look at the big picture of the topic of intrusion detection systems. So intrusion detection systems contribute an important part to the task of the detection and mitigation of security incidents, which is requested by a number of upcoming standards and regulations. So we structured the overall topic of detection and mitigation of security incidents via this approach here. So the first step is that you are able, whenever a vehicle is under attack, that you are able to detect and gather and record data on security-related events that are happening on the vehicle. The next step, or the second step, is that you should report the data and transmit the security-related events to an offboard service, such as a security operations center. And on its way, this rather compact data stream, which is provided by the vehicle, is refined and further enriched to provide as much benefit to the security analysts as possible. And at the Security Operations Center, the security analysts are inspecting the security event data for single vehicles, but also they need the aggregated view of the security of the whole fleet. So their job is to do an impact analysis and a root cause analysis. Then, based on this analysis results, it must be decided whether a threat response needs to be developed and what kind of threat response. So some measures, countermeasures need to be identified and implemented. One potential countermeasure is that a vulnerability in the software is fixed via a software update, and that then the new software version is deployed to the affected vehicles to protect these vehicles from similar attacks. So in this presentation today, we want to focus on the first four elements of this overall life cycle, where I will cover the steps 1 to 3, and my colleague from IBM Cybersecurity will cover the topic of analysis and the tools used in a security operations center. Okay, now let's have a first look at the fundamental concepts of the onboard detection of security events and the data gathering. And the concepts that I present here have been standardized in the AUTOSAR 2011 release. So everything which I present here is basically standardized in the AUTOSAR specifications. So the basic principle is that whenever an attack is happening on the vehicle, the security event sensors, which are deployed on the software, will recognize the attack and raise a so-called security event. A specific component on the ECU, the so-called Intrusion Detection System Manager, or IDSM, is able to handle these security events and to filter these security events based on configurable filters. And The security events which pass these filters are regarded as so-called qualified security events, and only these qualified security events are further handled throughout the whole life cycle. And with the qualified security events, you have basically two options. One option is to pass the qualified security event to a local security event memory on the ECU for storage. And the benefit of this is that if the vehicle is, for example, at the garage, these security events could be retrieved and then analyzed with any diagnostic tool, and if the user has the appropriate rights and roles. The other option is to not only locally store these security events, but to propagate them to another ECU which has a backend link. And on this ECU, a component which is called the IDSR is executed. So this is the IDS reporter. And the job of the IDS reporter is to collect all qualified security events of a vehicle, enrich them with things like geoposition, for example, and also a vehicle identification number, and then package these security event data and send it to a vehicle security operations center at the back end. So there are different deployment options how such a architecture can be deployed in vehicle EE architectures. What you see here is some example architecture where we have three powerful main computers in the vehicle. Attached to them are these four blue domain controllers, and then we have a number of, let's say, smaller kind of ECUs which do the heavy lifting of the standard processing tasks. So a starting point could be to deploy the Intrusion Detection System Manager, the security sensors, and the security event memory on one of these central high-power ECUs. For example, this could be some kind of security gateway, which also hosts a firewall, because we expect that this is the point where we can gather a lot of interesting security events if the vehicle is under attack. In this approach, all the data would be just stored on this main ECU here in the center and just stored locally. And this deployment option could be extended by having an IDS reporter to which this instance is reporting its security events, and those security events can then be transported offboard to some service in the backend for further analysis. So this would be the next deployment option. And finally, this deployment could be extended to basically any ECU which is considered as being security relevant, so that we get a distributed onboard IDS system where the qualified security events are collected, gathered, and can be transmitted to the security operations center. Let's have a brief look at the detailed software architecture. So how this looks like on the AUTOSAR basic software module level. So the IDS manager is a module of the crypto stack, which has a number of interfaces to so-called security event sensors, which could be part of an SWC, so a software component. There could be in a basic software module or in a complex device driver. Then for storing the security events locally, we have an interface to the diagnostic event manager for persisting security events locally. And we have an interface to the PDU router for transmitting the qualified security events to the IDS reporter. Furthermore, via the DCM module, the security events could be reconfigured. We have the NVM manager for persisting of parameters, and the STVM can be used to gather timestamps for our security events. And alternatively, also an application could be used to get timestamps. If required, the security event data could be signed and or encrypted by using the interface of the crypto service manager. So with this, we covered basically the area of detecting, storing, and gathering security events on board in a vehicle architecture on the level of a single ECU until we can cover the complete vehicle network, which should be monitored with an IDS. So the next two steps are basically about the reporting of this data, which we have gathered, and the refinement of that data. So what you see here on the left side is still the vehicle. So we are still on board of the vehicle. We see our security event sensors and our IDS managers. They can be on the AUTOSAR Classic platform, but also the AUTOSAR Adaptive platform is supported. Then we have our ECU with a backend link, which could be, for example, a telematics control unit, which is hosting the IDS reporter, which would typically be an AUTOSAR adaptive system. And via the backend link, now the stream of security events is sent to the actual backend site, which basically represents the vehicle security operations center. And the first step, which is done at the backend, is to inspect the data stream received from the vehicle, which is a very compact, condensed binary format, and to expand this data structure to something that is more useful for the security analysts than basically the binary data received from the vehicle. And for this task, the so-called IDSL component can gather data from various attached databases. For example, this could be AUTOSAR XML files or diagnostic databases. And this data is then enriched to provide more context data to the security events received from the vehicle. And after this enriching of data, this data is finally passed on to the core of the Vehicle Security Operations Center, where various analysis systems are installed. And one very important part of these are the SIEM systems. And my colleague Justus Reich from IBM Cybersecurity will give you an overview how this chain of data is further processed and handled in the Vehicle Security Operations Center. Okay, so in the previous sections of the presentation, we covered the topics of how security event data is detected, captured, and locally stored on the vehicle. We also covered how this data is reported via the IDSR to the backend, and a first refinement step in the backend with the IDSL system to enrich the data, so to expand the binary stream and provide more or additional information which is useful for the security analyst in the backend. And exactly what's the main part of this backend and the Vehicle Security Operations Center, including the SIEM software. This is covered by my colleague Justus Reich from IBM in his part of this presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Eduard, and dear participants of the Vector Automotive Cybersecurity Symposium. Welcome to my part of this presentation. And before I start talking about Vehicle Security Operations Center, doing like the back-end security operations, I would like shortly introduce what IBM has to do with cybersecurity, or especially with automotive cybersecurity. Okay, before we start, let me give you a short introduction what IBM has to do with security, especially with automotive cybersecurity. We're actually the largest enterprise cybersecurity provider worldwide in a very diverse market where a lot of players are around. But due to our global footprint, we lead in more than 12 or in 12 market segments in the area of security. And we have over 8,000 employees in our security division, where over 2/3 are technical people supporting clients, doing services, and being in research. We claim to have over 17,000 clients that we are serving in our 9 globally distributed what we call command centers, which have security operation centers and of course briefing capabilities to train and to show client about IBM security services and portfolio. Yeah, and as you have an idea on how big the services are being provided, we are analyzing over 70 billion events per day around the globe. Okay, good. But that's so far for the introduction, and now the IBM point of view on automotive security. As you saw by Eduard showing, there is the perspective from the car, securing the car, but in the back end, there has to be done a lot of more work to analyze and make the right decisions on the events, security relevant events provided by the car. The main 2 drivers IBM sees is, of course, the regulations. Yeah, you see here the regulatory landscape for the automotive industry, where those we are talking now about is the UNECE VP29, which covers the 2 ISOs, SIA 21434 and AWI 24089. You see that they have just recently been drafted and becoming public like this year or in the next year, and that the regulation will be valid for cars, for new models, for all car manufacturers worldwide in 2022. And for all the models then in 2024. So there is time to react for the vendors to establish an automotive security discipline. And now for sharing you some insight on how IBM sees the development on connected cars. Yeah, there's much more of services coming to the cars. Yeah, you can already see it that you can open your car and start your car by an app on your smartphone. Yeah, but there's a lot more to come, how to engage the drivers, the clients, the end users, so to say, with the experience in the car. Yeah, I don't want to go into that in detail, but you can see that the communication to the car gets much broader and much more intensive as it is right now, and hence, let's say the paths and the phalanxes to attack the vehicle become much broader than they are right now. And hence, it's important to provide like an end-to-end security where we are partnering with Vector Informatik to leverage the IDS that Eduard just introduced to you to feed it into our security operations to allow the vendors to make the right decisions in securing the car and preventing any damage from people and other traffic participants. And now to understand what is necessary to have a secure car and to what security disciplines are around vehicle security operations center, you can see that first of all, the identity of all involved participants has to be trusted. Yeah, not only the cars, but also the drivers, the smartphones from which you are controlling, or maybe do some steering of the car, not steering the car in total, but doing some changes, and also the back end and other cars or traffic lights or whatever related entities are talking to each other. Yeah, the data within the car is very sensitive because it contains sensitive and even personal identifiable information, which has to be has a high level of security and therefore should be and have to be secured and encrypted. Also, the access control management is very important because you have to ensure that only those entities that should be able to do a change are allowed to do a change, and nobody else, to prevent any criminal interaction. Yeah, and last but not least, in all this very distributed communications between cars, between the driver and his car, between the back end to the car, and so on. It's important that the communication is securely encrypted to be sure that no intrusion is happening on this communication path. So you can see that there's a lot more components than just simply the intrusion detection system that have to be considered for the car security and have to be analyzed and viewed in the Security Operations Center. And this is where IBM comes into play. Yeah, first with our CM system Curator, where we collect all the data. And then also with other software parts of IBM supporting you in orchestrating the response and enriching the data with knowledge from the outside to make the right decisions. What an automotive vendor has to do to prevent any damage from his car fleet and also from the individuals that are driving these cars. Okay, coming now to a point how such a security operations center works. Yeah, of course, we rely on the data coming from the car. Yeah, in this case, every security relevant and qualified data that is provided via the intrusion detection system integrated in the AutoSAR platform. But of course, that's not all. Yeah, we are collecting also information around the car, maybe just like the weather conditions, like the traffic conditions, like the road conditions, if there's traffic work, if the road is in a good shape, what possibly other drivers around are experiencing, and so on. So all this data is collected and has to be forwarded to the Security Operations Center via, let's say, a stable scaling and secure connection between the car and the backend. Yeah. When the data arrives there, of course, we are detecting security relevant and very sensitive events to analyze them and then prioritize what actions need to be done first and what actions need to be done anyway to prevent any damage to the driver or the car. Yeah. This comes now to what we call the security operations or the incident response. It needs to be orchestrated, maybe sometimes even automated, to respond to the events we are getting. So if there's a critical message coming from the IDS showing that the sensitive component is failing, the right people have to investigate this and decide what has to happen next, if it's not even be able to automate a response. Yeah. Furthermore, to drive the right decisions, we get external information to inform and enrich and also advise the analysts in the Security Operations Center to do the right to drive the right decisions. And in the end, the outcome is then passed to the supplier or in the not so important cases to research and development to fix any problems. And this end up in the easy cases in maybe simple software updates to increase security in the car, or in the more serious cases to notify the drivers to possibly do a certain action or even stop the car in cause of a severe damage. To get an idea now how the IBM portfolio is included into that, I've given you here the information, what components we are leveraging for that. But again, it's not focused on talking about our products, but showing you that we see it as an holistic approach, giving our strengths in the understanding of security, in the analysis of security, and providing the right solutions, or not the right solutions, but the right decisions and the right responses for a car security. Having that said, I will be passing back over to Eduard to give us a summary of our joint presentation. Thank you.
Yes, Justus, thank you very much for giving us the insights about the Security Operations Center and with all the data sources and services which are basically also connected and contributing to what the Security Operations Center can perform. And with this, I would like to conclude with a short summary our presentation about IDS. We already covered the detection, the reporting, the finding of data, and finally also the processes in the vehicle security operations center. So I think today we did really a lot to get a consistent picture about the detection and mitigation of security incidents, which is a solution from end to end, which we could demonstrate with IBM in our partnership for the demonstrator. And to summarize the benefits of the overall approach, we used a standardized technical framework based on AUTOSAR for implementing an onboard ADS. By this, we get a scalable approach, which balances the available resources in the vehicle and the reporting needs. The complete approach is highly configurable regarding its reporting behavior to meet the quite different needs of OEMs and the different constraints of vehicle architectures. And we also can reuse the existing tool chain, so we don't need to raise a new tool chain besides the existing tool chains for automotive software in order to support the topic of IDS systems. And I think what's a big benefit is that we can use established enterprise level security operation center solutions and SIEM solutions, as we have shown in this example with Curator from IBM. And by this, our assumption is that this framework allows to drive down costs for the ownership and the operation of the intrusion detection system lifecycle and for detecting, reporting, and analyzing security events. Okay, so I would like to conclude our presentation with these pictures from our joint demonstrator from the ERR fair. Justus and I are happy if you raise your questions in the following Q&A. But of course, you're also free to contact us at any point later in time if you are interested in any details of our solution. Thank you very much and have a nice day.